Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to the year of the Hierophant. So here we go into our tarot pilgrimage for 2021. Clearly very different this year, as we have always met in person to do this. And now we're on Zoom as our culture has moved us into a new direction. So I'm very happy to see everybody on Zoom today. And I'm so glad you could come. I'm seeing people from the Lightning Spiral and the Fool's Journey and the Sisters of the Holy Pen. Yay, everybody. And most importantly, the people who have been attending the tarot pilgrimage for years, and many, I don't know how many years. In fact, if anybody knows how many years we've been doing this, you can put it up on the chat. It's a long time. So now here we go, entering the year of the Hierophant. This is going to be a really interesting year, I think. Okay, so the Hierophant basically, well, first of all, 2021 is a 5-year, and that's very simply related to the numerology of the year. 2021, 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 1 equals 5. And so that's where it comes from. We're going to begin our pilgrimage, and the pilgrimage has to do with drawing our cards for the whole year. We go all the way around the year drawing our cards, and that's why we call it the pilgrimage. And I'm going to begin our time together today with a lecture on the meaning of the Hierophant to get us all oriented as to the year 2021. So this is the Hierophant, and the Hierophant is essentially the high priest of the tarot deck. The high priest in the realm of the Hierophant is visible. The Hierophant appears. For example, whereas the high priestess, she may be behind the scenes doing her powerful work, but the Hierophant is in front of the scenes with a shingle hanging out, so to speak, and is appearing. In fact, the word Hierophant means sacred appearance. Hiero, sacred, font, appearance. We will be looking at the exalted version of the Hierophant today, and the exalted version is the Hierophant as a great leader and a great healer and a great spiritual leader generally. And when I say exalted, it's because each of the cards has an exalted and unexalted version of itself. The unexalted version of the Hierophant, for example, could be when the Hierophant is representing political or a political angle or an angle of power that is not necessarily connected to the very deepest well of spirit and soul. Okay, so that would be unexalted. And when I say exalted and unexalted, it's not that there's just either exalted or unexalted. It's an entire cycle of experience with the Hierophant. And we're going to be looking at the Hierophant today as the best possible aspect of the Hierophant. So this goes, what I'm saying about these archetypes, this archetype of the Hierophant holds true for all of the tarot cards, that they have the exalted and the unexalted upside down version. That's how some people read tarot reversals, by the way. Okay, so it's a circle of expression. Okay, last year, which is 2020, was a 4-year. And so many of us here met last year and looked at the aspects of the year of the 4. And I did a lecture about this last year too, which is on YouTube. It's 2020, the year of the emperor. And this will also be on YouTube. 2021, year of the Hierophant. So these were the cards from last year. We had the Emperor, number 4, Death, number 13, because one plus 3, well, that's a Roman numeral 13, but 1 plus 3 equals 4, returns to the Emperor. And the other card associated with the Emperor is the Fool, taking a leap. Well, my friends, we could, in January last year, we could never have imagined how these 3 cards would play out over the year. And maybe you have some amazing stories that we might be able to share later about this. But we certainly were witnessing the energy of the Emperor in our world, and we were coming to terms with that within ourselves as well. We were definitely witnessing the power of death in our world through 2020, and then the leap into the extremely unknown future. Okay, so now let's just put it this way for the moment. So I don't want to go back into last year, but I want to go forward into the leap into the Hierophant, because this is where we are now. So we're crossing over now between the 4 and the 5. Okay, so with regard to the 5 energy of the Hierophant, the 5 energy of the Hierophant is about transcending the wounds. I'll come back to this, but transcending the wounding, receiving the keys to the temple, and then understanding a new way of being, a new vibratory level, moving into a new vibratory level, and then transmitting the new vibratory level. Okay, and then standing right behind the Hierophant, as we had Death standing behind the Emperor last year, right behind the Hierophant, we have Temperance, the card of Temperance. Okay, so Temperance is the number 14, and 1 plus 4 equals 5. So it goes back to 5. So it's like the Temperance is standing behind the Hierophant. Okay, so we'll come back to this. Temperance is about becoming tempered. Whatever does not die in the process is made strong and is made harder. Whatever does not burn in the process is made harder. This is the power of temperance. Like if you put the sword, the metal into the flame, you pull it out and pound it, that's tempering the metal. Okay, so we become tempered. In temperance, we also enter the temple with expanded awareness. And so we will come back to that as well. So I'd like to start with a geometry lesson on the first 5 aspects of the cards. So the 0 is basically the field. And if I were doing this geometry lesson on the blackboard, I would have the 0 would represent, 0 is nothing. And so it would represent the entire blackboard. The board would be the field. So that's the board. Number 1, and this would be the magus. So we have 0, the Fool, then we have number 1, the magus. The magus, we place a dot on the board, and that gives us an orientation. So that represents number 1. If we put another dot on the board, that represents number 2. And the second power, which goes for all the 2s plus the High Priestess. And that gives us directionality. If we have 2 dots on the board, we have direction. And we also can have polarization, everything that 2 represents. I don't want to go into it anymore right now. Then if we put up another dot, 1, 2, 3 on the board, we have the first existence of a plane. So it's hugely expanded in the number 3. And the 3 is the Empress. It's the power of creativity. It's the power of birth and the power of bringing forth more than we could have possibly imagined. Then when we get to the 4, the Emperor, the 4 is where we cannot possibly attend to all of creation as it's too big. So what we do in the 4 is we stabilize parts of it. So there's a lot of discrimination and discernment that takes place in the 4 while we decide what is important enough for us to preserve and maintain. So that's a big part of the 4 energy: preservation and maintenance and structure. How will we create the structures to survive? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 points. And so when we put up our 4th point and we put it on the board, it becomes easy to discern the 4 points. But when we put up the 5th point, so if I'm on a flat board still, I don't have to do this on a flat board, by the way. I can put those points anywhere in space. And with 4 points, we still can create a plane. With 4 points, we can create a pyramid. If we have 1, 2, 3 on the bottom and a point at the top, we can make a pyramid. It's our first. 4 is the first place of a solid, whereas 3 is a plane, 4 is a solid. Okay, but if we have a solid, let's just take it from the point of view of the solid. If we have the pyramid, 3 points on the bottom and 1 at the top, and that makes a solid, and then we're going to put a 5th point on there to make a new geometrical form, where will we put the 5th point? The 5th point becomes confusing and unclear. And we have to think about it a little bit, about where we're going to go to find order. So eventually what we could wind up doing maybe with the 5th point, and this is the Hierophant, the 5th point, we could make a 5-pointed star or a pentagon. Excuse me, boy, that one caught in my throat right there. Pentagon. We can make a pentagon out of 5 points. Okay, so we could make a 4, maybe a pyramid with 4 points as a base and a point at the top, but it takes more thought to figure out what we're going to do with the 5. 1, 2, 3, and 4 are more clear from a geometrical point of view. They're simpler. Okay, so another aspect of the 5 is that the 5, because it is more complex, becomes more productive as a teacher. So what we're going to learn from the 5, we're going to go deeper, we're going to learn more. And if we employ the energies of the 5 in a good way, in a way that is productive for us, we will begin to learn how to transcend the sense of victimization that can come along with the 5 energy. Because in the beginning of the 5 energy, remember, everything goes through a whole cycle. So in the beginning of the 5 energy, there's a lot of confusion. Like, where do we put the next point? Where are we headed? Where are we going? But when we begin to find the way through, that's when we begin to transcend that sense of victimization that can accompany us or be inside of us or with us. If we don't transcend that sense of victimization, we can get actually just stuck in the 5. In fact, we can live our whole lives from the point of view of this confusion, that part of the 5. It's when we first enter the 5. Okay, so another vision or representation of the 5 that I would like to give you, aside from that geometry lesson. I'm leaping out of the geometry lesson right now, and I want to give you let's see if you can see this on your screen. Here is a representation of the number 5 that is composed of 2 circles. This is a mystical representation of the number 5. It's composed of 2 circles, one above and one below. Okay, so let's check this out. See if you can see it. Okay, see the two circles? One has a right angle in it. The other one has a 3/4 curve around it. That's a number 5. That is the 5 as it's passed down in the mystery school transition. A right angle and then a 3/4 curve. Those two circles with the right angle and the 3/4 curve create a key, and we'll come back to that in a second. So I'm going to go back to the idea for a minute of 2020 being a 4. The 4 is the power of stabilization, but that goes through an entire process like everything else. It's a circle, a cycle. So when it first begins, it's more stable. When we first move into a 4 energy, we're searching for stabilization. We're searching for the values and that will help us to stabilize. But as we move through the whole process, what happens is then we do stabilize, we get things stabilized, but by the end of the process, as we're pouring into a 5, let's make it like a spiral, like I'm drawing in the air, everybody. This is me, this is me. I can't help it. I'm moving all the time. Okay, so it's like a spiral like this. So we go through the spiral of the 4, and then, but as we're heading into the spiral of the 5, what happens is that what we stabilize starts to destabilize because the 5 is destabilized energy. And so here's where we are. Okay, come back to this one too, because we're at the end of 2020, spiraling into 2021, a lot of destabilization. So, and then to give you a heads up, 2021 is going to spiral into 2022 at the end of this year. And when it does spiral, okay, here's a preview. When it spirals into 2022, theoretically, what we're going to see is those two circles of the 5, one above and one below. We're going to see those here. Here are two circles now. This is proof by cartoon. Okay, so those two circles are going to move together. They're going to overlap. They will overlap and create a Vesica Pisces. Okay, that is the energy of number 6, the key of the lovers. I'm already looking forward to that. But I don't want to wish my life away or anybody else's life away because we are going to move through this year step by step. Okay, so 5 is the energy of cataclysm. So whereas 4 is the energy of stabilization, 5 is the energy of cataclysm, and the 5 involves all the 4 5s of the tarot as well. The Hierophant involves all 4 5s of the tarot. So it's the 5 of fire, struggle, spiritual struggle, implosion, explosion, loss of faith, wondering what's going to happen. War is a big one on that card. 5 of water, spilling, broken heart, emotional collapse, betrayal, all of the things that hurt our heart the most. 5 of wind, fear of the unknown future. Where are we going? What is going to happen? What will become of us? And by the way, the fear card is most active with regard to not what is happening right this second, but rather what could happen in the future. And so fear is more associated with some unknown, with the unknown. And then there's the 5 of earth. Okay, the 5 of earth. This is the card of, it's called the nadir, which means the bottom. And it is physical calamity, illness, natural disasters, financial collapse, and all these things we have seen we have seen the premonition or harbingers of all these things in 2020. So we can expect more of this energy coming in as we move into the year. But remember, at the end of the year, it's going to be reconciled, okay, according to the path of Tarot. So all of these, the 5 of fire, the 5 of water, 5 of wind, 5 of earth, all create massive wounds inside us and a sense again of victimization. And then our first, a lot of times, not for the exalted people here, but a lot of times what we do is we try to find a place to put the blame. So we're going to blame somebody for what's happening. And so that's part of the beginning of the cataclysm, is looking for the cause of our problems. Okay. So back to the idea, 5, here we go to this 5. 5 is going to be the key. See if you can imagine this as a key. It's going to become a skeleton key. So 5 is the key that unlocks the door of the inner temple. Moving into the inner temple, or even achieving the key at all, obtaining or attaining the key at all, begins with suffering. It begins with suffering and it ends with healing. And healing is a matter of making whole and uniting that which has been fragmented. So that's where we're headed. Okay, in Hebrew, the letter associated with the number 5 is called Vav. And what that means is it literally translates into English as nail, or link, or hook, makes a connection. Okay, so the nail, they say, binds together those 2 circles of the 5. So they're connected. They're not disconnected. So the connection's a good start. There's a connection of the 2 circles. So the 5 winds up bringing together pairs of opposites. Those circles represent pairs of opposites. Okay, so if I show you, you see here, where did my little overlay go? Here it is. Okay, so first of all, let me show you this. This is the tree of life. All the cards fit on the tree of life, as you all know. And here's the path of the Hierophant connecting the number 2 and the number 4. So it's between the 2 and the 4. The 2 is the divine masculine, or the sacred masculine, or that would be the exalted view. The unexalted view would be the emitting masculine that is like blind with its emission. The sacred masculine is the exalted view. Okay, so the Hierophant connects the number 2, the masculine, with the number 4, which is going to be a new level of stabilization. But what's interesting is right below the number 4 is the Wheel of Fortune. So here's the Wheel of Fortune turning, 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 flowing into the number 4, and the Hierophant is going to have some action here of stabilizing and transmuting the energy of the 4 and the energy of the 2. So the Hierophant actually transmutes the energy of the masculine and transmutes the energy of the number 4, which is stabilization. So that's the position on the tree. Then if we look at to make sure I have this lined up right, if we look at the Hierophant, the overlay, this is can't see it. Okay, this is the overlay of the tree of life. I'm doing this instead of showing you the PowerPoint I have on this because I want to connect with you. I'm leaning into the screen. I want to talk with you. I don't want to put slides up right now. So this is what we're getting, right? This is me and this is what we're getting. Check this out. Here's the Hierophant. And as you know, all of you already know that all of these tarot cards are painted on a diagram of the tree of life. Okay, so we see these circles. Those represent the 1 through 10. The Hierophant is drawing together the two upper circles. Here, this would be the divine feminine and the divine masculine, bringing them together. This would be the 4 and the 5, second level down, 4s and 5s. Okay, so that's stabilization and cataclysm. Hierophant draws it together. And then the last pair of opposites at the bottom, this is the Lovers appearing at the bottom of the card. But this would be the energy of the emotions and the analytical mind. And we're going to come back to this path because it's so important at the bottom of the Hierophant. But what I want to show you is the Hierophant is bringing those energies together, those 3 layers, that through the head and then through the hands and then just through the bottom of the tree here. Okay, so the white garment, by the way, here, these are a few symbols on this card. The white garment, white is the sum total of all colors. So it represents wisdom in this particular case. But the red vest represents passion and moving forward and moving outward. And what we can see in the picture is the Hierophant is listening. This is a listening device, listening, and then hearing something internal and then transmitting the energy to the Lovers. These are the Lovers sitting at the feet, the sun and the moon. This is the male and female. Both are dressed in feminine attire because that shows receptivity. So it's all symbolic, receptivity. Okay, and then if we go back to the overlay, okay, we go back to the overlay, we see that the head connects those 2 I already pointed out. We see that the hands connect the 4 and the 5, and then, but I wanted to point out the middle path here because we see the feet on the checkerboard floor, which is now turned diamond. That means the energy is starting to move. Importantly, I want to point out that the number 6, which is going to come up next year, that's when I said the Vesica Pisces, when things start to congeal and shift, is right in the crotch, right in the genital area. So what the Hierophant is doing is changing, transforming within the power of transmission and through like the power of emission and then the power of transmission. So redefining how the energy is going to flow out. Okay, something else that I'm waiting for that I wanted to say to you about this. The card itself is androgynous. My mother painted the cards, you know, and she told me if you look closely at this card, you can tell that the Hierophant is actually a woman. Okay, you have to look closely and then you can see it. Okay, what is that about? That's about receptivity. So it's about our receptive aspects and calling in and feeling those energies. Also, Taurus is the astrological symbol. You see the Taurus sign. That's the astrological symbol for the Hierophant. Taurus. Taurus talks about the idea that all of this is unfolding on the earth, on the material plane. It's the rolling out and working with the 5s, and then seeking and moving toward the unification of polarized energies and the eventual oneness that will result, the oneness of pairs of potentially opposite forces and forms. So that's the energy that will come in the Hierophant. That's the potential of the card. So the Hierophant binds or links, and as I already said, nail or hook is the way it is referred to. This idea of the link, the nail or the hook, is the equivalent of the word and, as in binding walls and floors and roofs, all that builds the temple of life. The Hierophant binds spirit to matter, they say, binds pairs of opposites. The Hierophant fixes, the nail fixes in place, fixes, listens, as we see the headset on the Hierophant, listens to hear what needs to be done, and then ministers to self and others. This act of ministering requires deep listening and deep understanding and hearing the suffering that comes out of the fives, receiving the suffering, the sorrow. So this sorrow and this grief eventually lead us to the attunement to deep spiritual knowledge. Grief and sorrow can be transformed into healing, and this is the path of the Hierophant. And here we can ask ourselves, we can ask what will link the opposites in our own lives, and we can ask what will link things together culturally, what will create meaning, what will link the facets of our existence. And so what winds up happening is the Hierophant exemplifies the story, a story that holds things together. And the Hierophant then becomes a storyteller, which is what all of us are going to be moving toward this year in our own lives. Therefore, it is said, as in a mystery, here's the mystery, as sharp nails fasten the temple of life, the bonds of love fasten the universe, because the Hierophant is about love. Okay, why do I say this? Because the Hierophant is about listening, and listening is the key operationalization of the power of love. Receptivity. It's all about receptivity. Whoa, and now I'm going to digress for a minute just into what has happened culturally, because so much has happened for us this week. Whoa, it's just amazing. On January 6th, the United States opened the year with this amazing drama. I'll put it that way right now. Question, what story was told? And the story is being told and was being told in the moment of transformation, transferring power from the year of the Emperor to the year of the Hierophant, which is very interesting symbolically. And when I was watching it all transpire with the this movement into the White House. So I'm just going to mention this. So the red and blue circles Those are two circles, which have been very separated. We're forced into a room together, together. And in this room together, red and blue began to realize that they might be more alike than they had previously thought. They had all taken the same vow. They were all working for the American people, and they were driven by fear, and it was scary too. But it was the 5 energy that pushed them further and further and further. So they were sequestered. And then another story began to unfold, and we will see where it goes. That was only 4 days ago. The story began. This is our house. Our house was invaded. Our temple of democracy. These are some of the words that I heard while watching. So here comes the story. The story begins to say, and this is the beginning of the Hierophant, wait a minute, we are more alike than we are different. Let's bind together, let's link forces to preserve our common house and to do our job. And I even heard the incoming commander-in-chief referred to as the healer-in-chief. Okay, now, I know everybody's got different views on this, but these are some of the things I was picking up as that are related to the Hierophant energy that is coming in for 2021. Okay, back to Taurus. Taurus asks the question, what matters? Spirit is bound to matter, bound in and of and around matter on this planet. And Taurus asks, what matters? So this is the Hierophant story. Taurus follows the primal rush of energy inherent in Aries. Okay, the Emperor is Aries. That's what we're moving out of. We're moving out of the fire of Aries, and we're moving into Taurus into 2021. Taurus begins to stabilize the potential that has erupted spring-like, like spring erupting in the garden. So Taurus begins to stabilize this. The bull of Taurus is seen as steady and nurturing. The bull represents Taurus. The Taurus whorls, as they say, whirl, W-H-O-R-L-S, whirls together the lessons of the 4 elements, fire, water, air, and earth. Okay, so what may be possible is that within this space, the people begin to receive a steady, nurturing transmission, and then begin to combine to reinvigorate the garden. That's the best that could happen. That's the exalted state. Taurus represents depth within and strength without. It's oriented toward continuity, stability, and security. Taurus nurtures, maintains, and preserves the flow of emerging energies. The Hierophant is an earthly facilitator of this process. The Hierophant appears on earth to heal. And as I said, the word hiero, the prefix hiero means sacred, and font means appearance. So the Hierophant is a sacred appearance. Now, I need to say that I'm not speaking about the president-elect here, but it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I'm really speaking about the Hierophant within ourselves and where we want to go ourselves over the coming year. Okay, so standing right behind the Hierophant is Temperance, as I mentioned before, number 14, Temperance. Temperance is also known as the desert way. That's where we go out into the desert. We let go of everything we think we know to be true, and we find a new way. we get instructed and we find a new way. Temperance is also known as the path of the arrow. I'll come back to this in 1 second. Temperance is a gyroscope. It's like it's moving like this, trying to get right, trying to get tempered, trying to combine the black and white, trying to bring night and day together, trying to bring it all into balance and get it oriented, rebalancing. The combination or moving together of pairs of opposites, black and white, female and male, dark and light, moon and sun, all the sides, all the pieces. Temperance reaches because also to become tempered means to stretch, reaches, stretches upward like a plant growing to the light. In Hebrew, the letter of temperance is called samek, and samek means prop or crutch. Okay, so we have to ask, what will hold us up? What prop do we need? What crutch? How will we move forward? What will help us grow? And sometimes this prop or crutch of temperance is seen as a tent post in the middle of a tent. It holds up the whole tent. So we're looking for that proper crutch that holds up the whole tent. The astrology of temperance is Sagittarius, fire, awe and wonder, fear and trembling, absorbing information, integrating, connecting, and rebalancing. And the intelligence, every one of these cards has an intelligence. The intelligence of temperance, this is an interesting one right now. The intelligence of temperance is trial, temptation, or probation. And then what's going to happen is through trial, temptation, and probation, there's going to be a modification of the vibratory field because it's all about testing. Temperance is testing. And what we saw on January 6th, when the people moved into the White House, the insurgents, or whatever you want, as you call them, I understand a lot of that action. I just want to say, if you look at it from their point of view, you can understand where they were coming from, maybe misguided. But anyway, I don't want to go into that right now. But what they were doing, though, was it was an act of temperance. If we look at our cards here, that means they were seeing how far they could push it. It was a test. It was a temptation and it was a test. And it was what can be proved by this action? Okay, what will happen? Where are the boundaries? That's temperance. Where are the boundaries? Okay, so another thing that I want to say about this card, temperance, that's really important right now, it's called the path of the arrow. Okay, now if we go back and look at the tree of life, the path of the arrow goes between the 7 and the 8. Okay, I said that wrong. The path of the arrow, which is temperance, goes between the number 6 and the number 9. So it's right down here on the tree of life. Back it up. It's right down here on the tree of life. And the path between 7 and 8 is called the bowstring because the arrow needs a bow string in order to fly. Okay, so what happens is the number 7 represents new information, a vision quest, a place we can search for. The 8 represents the results of that. We are needing new information. This creates a bow and arrow. Okay, so we have a bow here that's going to shoot the arrow. And what happens is this bowstring path here between the two is actually the path of the tower. So the Tower becomes actually one of my favorite cards because this is the bowstring and it gets pulled back, the bowstring all the way back as far as it can go until it can't go any farther. And then it shoots the arrow. So I'm gonna, this is the bow, I'm pulling it back like this with the arrow. Oh, I'm gonna make my pen the arrow, that's cool. Here's the arrow. I'm gonna pull it back, and then I'm gonna release it and it's going to fly up the tree of life into the space of enlightenment. That's where it's headed. So that's where temperance is going too, because see, temperance, the path of temperance as the path of the arrow is what's going to fly up the tree into this space of complete understanding that eventually will embrace the whole tree of life and all of the cards. Okay, so I love that part. I love that the bowstring is the path of the Tower, which most of us fear. But the truth is, the bowstring, the path of the Tower, is created by the reception of a higher vibration, which starts to cause this quivering in the bowstring. But eventually, it's going to propel us into a whole new way of knowing. So the intelligence of temperance, trial, temptation, and probation. The intelligence of the Hierophant is called the triumphant eternal intelligence. The triumphant eternal intelligence seeks to awaken to very deep currents, not surface permutations, but very deep currents. And in my life, for example, so I'm a sociologist. In studying sociology, I found myself studying snapshots of a picture. So for example, with COVID, you would study what the statistics are, how they're moving. You would break it down by gender, race, and you would look at it month by month by month. These are like snapshots of something that's going on. So that's where I started. And in fact, I have a background in public health as well, but that's not relevant here. There was a moment when I began to awaken, and this is over 3 decades ago, that I didn't want to put my attention anymore onto those snapshots that are the permutations. What I wanted to do is I wanted to make a deep dive and look at what is abiding, what is eternal. And this is the energy of the Hierophant, the high priest, which applies to the high priestess as well. It's like going deep into what is real and eternal forever. What is lasting? What flows beneath? What is the deep path? What is the deep destination? What is the source? This is the triumphant, eternal intelligence. What prevails in the end? And then, as so many of you know, I began to turn my attention to the idea of love because love unites. Love unites what the mind and the conclusions, permutation, surface permutation conclusions can divide. Love is the path of the Hierophant. And I wanted to share out of the Hierophant from, this is Kabbalah and Tarot of the Spirit. This is the triumphant eternal intelligence. For all the Hierophant holds, bridges, and endures, there is but one true overarching light. This is the triumphant eternal intelligence contained in the realization that love is the door, the way, and the answer. With love as the lantern that illuminates the way, compassion prevails eternally. The quintessential, that's 5, quintessential nature of the spiritual path, the path of the Hierophant, is and forever shall be attunement to and alignment with cosmological love. So I move myself into this space of, now let us turn our attention away from things transient and toward things that are eternal. And the only way to get there is by listening internally, listening externally. If we listen, we might hear, and then we can move forward. Hearing is the power of the Hierophant. As we see the headset there, we need to open our inner ear to hear the deeper truths. Listening is the Hierophant's superpower. Hearing the eternal within and without. And then when we understand that, we understand the esoteric title of the Hierophant, which is called Magus of the Eternal. Okay, Magus means to do or to make, as in magic or image or imagination. The Magus makes things happen, brings things alive. The Magus of the Eternal, the Hierophant, becomes an active portal for the transmission of eternal wisdom. The Hierophant listens and then transmits. And then I want to relay something personal, and I'm going to bring this to a close. While I was working on this and preparing this for you today, I ran across notes from a meeting with my teacher from March 24th, 1995, long time ago. That was 2 years after I was ordained. I'm an ordained minister, and I carry that on. I carry the teachings on, in case you don't know, right now with Terra Nova, which is a seminary that I have created, interfaith, non-denominational, and indigenous. It's a combination. Okay, so anyway, so what she told me, 1995, she said, 5 is the number of the secret places and the deepest occult secret. She said to me, you will awaken through your experiences of pain and suffering. Then you will be able to move through levels of consecration that you as yet have no knowledge of. The key is listening. If you diligently listen, you will receive. If you allow the universe to work with you, you will receive. And you will continue on the path of initiation. 5 is the glyph of initiation. 5 is the glyph that moves the energy. She said, you can hold the 5 in your hand like a key, okay? Hold the lower part of the circle in your hand like a key. Insert the key into the keyhole and turn, okay? Each one of those 2 circles is created of spirit, heart, mind, and body. It's a circle cross of the 4 directions of the fire, the water, the air, and the earth. Okay, so what happens when we take hold of that key and we decide to work it, work the key of the 5, put the key in the door, turn it, and as we turn it, it starts spinning fire, water, air, and earth together and changes the configuration. We can begin to help to integrate these 4 elements or 4 worlds or anything that is separated. And she said to me, this is how you will move out of your isms, ISM. Okay, the isms are the things that entrap us and separate us. It's the isms. This is how we become liberated, she said. This is how we become free. We drop the isms and begin to wield and move and spin the energies. You can tap and transmit these energy frequencies to others. you can transmit the frequency, the new frequencies, and in particular, the frequency of love and unity. And always, this is going to be a frequency of humility. Why is it about humility? Because it's about listening, receiving, taking in, understanding, standing under. Standing under in order to heal. Standing under in order to make whole. So the Hierophant bridges, connects, links the worlds of spirit and matter. And one last point on that, on the tree of life, the path of the Hierophant crosses the abyss. Here's the abyss. And it is said the abyss separates the world of the manifest from the world of the unmanifest. The Hierophant connects and bridges both of those worlds. The Hierophant, back to the tree of life, the Hierophant both draws up into this path and draws down into this path. Brings both together. Draws down and offers up. So sometimes the Hierophant is known as the sacrificial priest, whose role is to drop beneath the surface permutations and illuminate the deeper sacred realities, and thereby to raise the vibrational level of the garden. The Hierophant energy often awakens within us in our worst hours of pain and suffering. It's then we begin to move towards selecting, growing, and stabilizing the new. And this requires stepping out of our sense of victimization and activating our powers of mercy and forgiveness. Those are related to the exalted aspects of the four, mercy and forgiveness. This is, again, it's all about understanding. The Hierophant gains the keys to the temple of soul. And when we employ these keys, we enter the temple of compassion. We enter into and embrace the nature of one who, quote, ministers to others, one who seeks to make whole. This is the vibratory pattern of the Hierophant. The Hierophant is the most shamanic of all shamanic, if I didn't say that clearly, of all the tarot archetypes. Why? Because the Hierophant actively enters into the pain and suffering, both personal and collective. The Hierophant strives to understand, to move the energies, and thereby eventually becomes fit to be a healer. And a healer is one who makes whole. And I'm going to end by saying, again, the heart unites what the mind divides, and the Hierophant is very connected with the heart. So as we move into the energy of this year, this is the call of the Hierophant. May I pierce the veils that block my clarity. May I discover wisdom at the heart of my soul. May I recognize divine guidance. May my spirit be whole. May my heart be whole. May my mind be whole. May I integrate my life through spiritual devotion. May I be led by the sacred song. Through the divine, may I be healed. Through the divine, may I become whole. Through the sacred, may I heal. Through the sacred, may I make whole. And now we will begin to open, to receive the key of the Hierophant. So that is the end of what I want to tell you about the energies that are coming in for 2021 and that we can work with. And as we draw our tarot cards this year, they will all be oriented around the energetic vibration of the Hierophant. Thank you.